What is the strangest thing you've seen that you cannot explain?
When I worked in the medical field, I had a dream one night about a patient of mine, a very kind elderly woman, whom I visited once or twice a week. In the dream she came to me, dancing, and called out to me that she wasn't hurting anymore. I was so happy watching her dance after seeing her decline for years. When I got to work the next morning, I told my coworkers about the dream, and later that morning we got the call from her daughter that she had passed away the night before. I cannot explain that, but I am glad I had told my coworkers about it before the call and not after, otherwise they'd never have believed me. Such a bizarre experience, but so wonderful to feel she was at peace.
I once met this young homeless guy, probably about 10 years ago. Acted like he knew me. When I said I had no idea who he was, he said, "Isn't your name Beardmonger and you work in radio broadcasting?" I got right freaked out cause I had been applying to colleges for radio and there was no reason for him to know my name. I said no, but I've wanted to work in radio. "Who are you?" He responded saying it wasn't important and to ignore him as sometimes he gets confused between the present and the future, and just left. I never saw him again. It threw me off completely. I abandoned the idea to go into radio almost out of fear.
I was having a sleepover at home with a friend from school. We were watching a film and suddenly the weirdest thought comes to me. Her dog has just passed. Obviously I cannot just blurt that out. So I weirdly ask in the middle of the film, "Hey, by the way, how was your dog?" She was quite surprised obviously. I had never met her dog and she doesn't talk much about it. She just mentioned she had one. She answered that he is aging, but well. We moved on, but I couldn't shake a weird feeling. Anyway, she goes home the next day and calls me after a while. She asked, "Why did you ask about my dog yesterday? How did you know? He passed away last night, around the same time you asked about him." I was both shocked and unsurprised at the same time. I don't have an explanation. It seems like a weird coincidence since her dog was not something usually on my mind. It never happened to me again.
Standing outside of a convenience store, I saw two different cars park about a minute or so apart and go in the store. It was obvious the two didn't know each other, at least it seemed. After shopping, they each left in the other's car. Still can't explain it today without going down the CIA conspiracy route.
Not sure this counts. I was in it, but wasn't happening to me. Pull into a fast food drive-thru in Odessa, TX, my first time there. My turn at the speaker, and I place my order. It's been a long drive, so I'm treating myself and being a little picky, asking nicely, and building a customized meal. Cashier listens, and says, again, "You ate all that already?" Me, huh, cashier, "Oh, I'm sorry. Someone who sounds just like you was just through here, placed the exact same order." Me, "Hey, cool. Weird, but cool." I get to the window and the girl looks at me with this exasperated expression, opens the window and says, "It is you." Me, cashier calls her manager over and points at me, shows him the order, says nothing. Manager, "Welcome back. Was there a problem with your order?" Me, "No, I haven't gotten it yet." Manager, clearly confused, "I made your order myself." Cashier points at time on receipt, manager blinks, and says that's the same order, to her, looks at me. Back at her, and says, "And that's him." Cashier, "I said the same thing." Both of them looked genuinely upset and confused. It got worse when I told him I had never been in Odessa before. As the manager was handing me my food, he laughed and visibly relaxed. The other guy had long hair, he explained, pointing to my cap. Like, halfway down his back. "You just have a twin, I guess, with the same kind of car." His face when I took off my hat and showed him long hair. They might have been messing with me for fun. Shifts get long and people are creative. But if it was a game, they deserved careers in theater, because they looked terrified. Yes, I looked around for copies of my car or self while I was in town. Nada.
4 Amish men in a room counting money with a money counter while simultaneously weighing out my ounce of weed. Just wasn't what I was expecting.
A very badass Great Dane I knew, a former neighbor's dog, was so afraid of a month-old kitten that he ran into the deepest room of his home and didn't stop quivering and whimpering for several hours. For context, he wasn't a timid dog. Little over a month before the mentioned incident, a drunk man attempted to break into their home at night and the dog bit half of his left foot off. P.S. Rest in peace, Scoop.
I was driving one night in a really foul mood and speeding. Like when I say speeding I mean at least 25 over the limit. Anyway, this car gets behind me and for some reason I can just tell it wasn't a cop. It was a full tinted Chevy truck with weird lights on it, like comically large aftermarket front headlights. Once it got behind me I got a really eerie feeling I can't explain. Like my body just knew something was wrong. Anyway, I figured if it was a cop they would light me up for speeding, but for some reason they just kept pace with me, also speeding themselves. So at this point I'm getting a little weirded out, so I turn off the freeway and they follow me. I turn into a gas station and get out. I figure if I'm going to get axe murdered at least the cameras will pick it up and give my family some closure. Something just didn't sit right with me. I knew something was up. As I'm getting out of my car the truck rolls its windows down. And what I saw still haunts me to this day. It was a heavily disfigured guy, the only likes of which I can compare to that guy Rocky Dennis from the movie about the guy with a crazy disfigured head who falls for that girl who loves him for him and not the abomination that is his face. And he starts to motion me with his finger like telling me to come closer. I don't care if he was going to give me the winning Powerball numbers, there was no way in hell I was going to approach his car. I bolt inside the gas station. At this point my whole body is shaking. I try and tell the clerk what's going on as they stare at me, probably thinking I'm drunk or high off my ass as my story doesn't make any sense. I go to look outside and the truck is gone. I still have nightmares to this day.
Fall 2009 I was sick. Like super sick. It was a few weeks before my amputation and I was battling a severe bone infection. I was hopped on all kinds of antibiotics. I had a PICC line and would dose my antibiotics through these little balls, and pain medication. I'm a huge Yankee fan, so my best friend got us tickets for the ALCS game at Yankee Stadium. She pushed me around the stadium in a wheelchair with a beep of blankets on me. It was freezing, just to put a smile on my face. My friend leaves our seats to go get some hot dogs and stuff. This is where it gets weird. As soon as she leaves, to my recollection, an older Irish gentleman sits by me. He offers me some of his spiked hot chocolate, but I said no thanks and explained that I was on a lot of medication. We begin talking, and I told to him what was going on with my life. He asked if I was scared to have my leg amputated, and I told him that I was. I was really frightened of the unknown. He gave me some pretty valuable life advice and comforted me. He assured me that it would be fine. He told me that, if you have to be an amputee, try to be the best damn amputee that there is. My friend comes back with food and asks who I was talking to. There's no one next to me. I guess I must have hallucinated this, but IDK. It felt more like some kind of angel or being that came to me to let me know it would be okay. I guess my guardian angel is an Irishman with spiked hot chocolate. ETA. Not sure if this makes it more creepy or not, but the Yankees were playing the Angels in that series.
Went hiking late at night with my buddy when something big and bright flew right over us above the tree line. It was so bright we couldn't even look at it, and whatever it was, it didn't make a sound. Actually, it was probably the most quiet moment of my life. I remember saying, "What the beep?" but no sound came out of my mouth. Only lasted a few seconds and it was over.
My grandfather told me a really cool story. There's a couple of things that grow or rot in trees that glow. Google foxfire. He saw an owl completely covered in this stuff flying around at night sometime in the 1930s.
Squirrel wearing a leaf cape.
It's a thing that happened to me firsthand. As a kid I went to the kitchen downstairs late at night to get some snacks for midnight gaming. There was this bowl of candy on top of a shelf that my parents didn't think I knew about, so I grabbed a chair and had to stand on my toes to reach it. The bowl slipped from on top the shelf onto the floor, and I held my ears knowing there would be a sound of shattering glass in the middle of the night's silence, and I thought my parents would wake up and be mad at me. But there was no sound and no trace of the glass bowl or any candy at all on the floor. I was so flundered, so I just sat on the chair staring at the floor for a while before going back to my room wondering what the hell just happened. A few days later my mom was looking for the bowl, but it was nowhere to be found, and I never told anyone as they would just think I was crazy. Edit. Wow. first time I get this many upvotes. Thanks guys. I don't know how awards work, but I see that I got one. If it means you spent money to give it to me, I am thankful. But please kindly consider donating it to a local shelter. Edit. From reading the comments, occurrences of this kind seem more common than I could have guessed. Interesting. Please continue to share your versions.
Outside my bedroom window was a paddock. And one morning I saw a rabbit running across towards the woods behind the paddock. It was a minimum of 5 foot tall.
When I was in my 20s in the early 1990s, I had a car accident that kept me in hospital for about a year. It was a Catholic hospital and most of the nursing staff were nuns, and besides the normal checks, they regularly just stopped in to chat and see how I was doing. Early one morning there was a knock and this nun came in that I hadn't seen before and introduced herself as Sister Greta, a member of the nursing staff. She sat on the side of the bed and we spoke for a few minutes. Then she asked if she could say a prayer for me. She held my hand and said a prayer, then wished me well and left. About 5 minutes later there was another knock and one of the regular sisters came in to say hi. I remarked it was going to be a good day because I'd already had one visit from Sister Greta and now I was getting another one. She said there wasn't a Sister Greta on the staff and there was only 2 sisters around, it being so early. I pointed to the bed, which clearly showed where she had been sitting, and described her in the habit she had been wearing, now getting a bit unnerved. The sister basically shrugged and bustled off. She came back about half an hour later with a book about the hospital's history and showed me a picture of some nuns from the 50s. Their habits were exactly the same as Sister Greta's that I'd described. Turns out that patients regularly mentioned talking to nuns in old garb that definitely weren't part of the current staff. I never saw her again or anything similar while I was there. Kinda freaky but not overly disturbing. I can't really explain it, but I guess it's the sort of ghost story I'm okay with, if that's what it was.
A tiny humanoid creature underwater. To this day I still search the internet in hopes that what I saw was an actual type of fish, but I still haven't found anything. I was snorkeling at the age of 16 off the coast of Australia with my dad. Seeing all the fish was so beautiful. My dad drifted a little far from me, but there was a reef protecting us from any large sharks, so I wasn't scared of snorkeling on my own. I swam down towards the coral to get a closer look at a small octopus when something caught my eye. A human face. A human face with an eerie smile and big eyes. It was sort of standing, casually leaning against the coral with a body about 4 inches tall and head no bigger than a grape. It resembled a naked human male but had gills by its neck and webbed feet. Smooth all over like a Ken doll. I stared at him. He stared at me. I stared back and tried to rationalize what I was seeing. I reached out to touch him, and he casually evaded me by stepping to the side, all while his creep. Why smile remained. I could see my dad has turned around and was swimming closer to me. So I called him over to see this crazy creature. The creature turned toward where my dad was swimming over, seemed to notice him, then looked back at me coyly. Then it walked away, walked on its little webbed feet on the coral and disappeared down through a little hole on the rocks. I tried explaining to my dad when he came over, but he couldn't explain anything like that either. He just said something about Aboriginal spirits and I shouldn't mess with it. I swear I think about that little fish man every day. Okay, I was going to wait until tomorrow to draw this beep, but I actually could not sleep until I got it out of my head. This is the best I could do. It's goofy looking but still sends chills down my spine to remember.
A long time ago, when I was in preschool, school had just ended and I was the first one, adult or child, at the exit, which was a tall gate with one of those C-shaped latches that slips over a pole to keep the gate shut. I walked up to it and reached for the latch, but alas, I was very small and the latch was at least 3 feet above me. I stepped back and decided to just wait for the adults to come set me free, but then the latch just lifted and the gate opened. I saw it clearly, there was nobody around and no one touched it. Still have no idea what that could have been. Childhood telekinesis, who knows?
I don't know why I read these creepy threads at midnight right before bed.
When me and my best friend were teenagers, we were walking home during the wee hours of the morning when a drunk guy basically acted like we knew him and invited us to eat. For some reason, we actually came with him and we ate at this 24/7 joint, where he told us about his adventures around the world, showed pictures, etc. We hung out until it was around 5 a.m. and walked home together. I have no idea who he beep was. I still don't.
People still buy tickets to see the Ellen DeGeneres show.
I've seen ball lightning when I was younger. I'm too dumb to explain that.
May your day be filled with joy and happiness. And please remember to like, share, and subscribe for more quality content every day.